Good.
All right. I got a little script here.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Nerd Talk podcast, Nerdy Talk for Nerdy Fans. I'm your host, Remington Kais, and today we have a very special episode for you all, Cobra Kai fans. We're going to be doing a review of Season 6, Part 2, which will probably be the last season of Cobra Kai. Um, Introducing my partner today, we got Strife the Warrior.
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's glad to have you on here. Um, Review this with me.
For sure.
Um, what are your thoughts on Cobra Kai as a whole? You know, you've done some Cobra Kai content on your channel, especially for like leading up to season 6. What are your thoughts going into season 6?
Overall, I thought the show has done a fairly good job of kind of like pushing the envelope season by season. I think it's always kind of hard for me to kind of compare the seasons, like, which one's my favorite, which one's my least favorite. But I'd like to think that like they did a good job of, like, so for example, season 1, season 2 laid down the foundation of the universe, kind of like Karate Kid 1 in itself, which I think why it holds like a special place in so many people's hearts because it's just so grounded and it kind of focuses on like the rivalries and the relationships and things like that. So personally, I know a lot of people didn't like season 5 because, or at least from hearsay, just because it was too Daniel focused. But
Oh
like
yeah,
if you kind of think about it, the franchise started with Daniel and Miyagi, and I understand that Cobra Kai is also from Johnny's point of view, but I still think that Johnny's still got his time to shine, and we saw that going into season 6. So I thought season 5 was a very nice tie to the Daniel arc up until that point, given that how it wasn't necessary, it kind of just reiterated the thing. It's not necessarily that Cobra Kai was bad and Miyagi-Do was good. It's just both of them had their appropriate times of when to use and when not to use, which as Johnny, as we saw Johnny learn in the first 2 or 3 seasons, of how that kind of applies. And it really just kind of goes back to like, okay, well, who's teaching these philosophies, which is kind of why, it was so poetic for Daniel to finally take down Terry Silver. So when they announced to me, it was like, hey, this is gonna be the last season. I thought it was, I think it was a good time to end it because you also didn't want it to drag on too long. So going up to that point, I think even if they had ended it there at season 5, that also would have been like a nice, bow to kind of like tie things together. So
I think going into season 6, season 5 was kind of like they're jumping the shark moment a little bit. It wasn't so much the rival dojos going at it, or like your Karate Kid focus. It was going to like comic book levels ridiculousness, which I mean I still love, because I'm a
mhm.
comic book movie fan and all that. I like all the drama, but I know it turned off some fans of the show that wanted it just grounded, a little bit more grounded in reality, instead of like karate being like the end all be all, of these people's
Right,
lives.
right.
So I know going into season 6, I was hoping it was going to be grounded a little bit more, just for that final ending to end on a good note for everybody. Um, I was a huge fan. I'm a martial artist, third degree black belt. Huge fan going into it, and I like their portrayal of how they made Johnny the good guy, the protagonist instead of an antagonist. And the only thing I didn't like going in is I don't like them forcing Samantha on us. I feel like she's like a forced kind of character, just so you have somebody from like Daniel's like corner to be as a main character. And I was a little weary of her going into it and how she kind of fits into it. And I was
Hmm.
a little worried about Dimitri being there too, because I feel like him being on the team that goes to this Sekai Taikai,
Hmm.
um, it takes me out of it a little bit, because in real life, I don't think a guy like him is going to be making it to the world championships. He's
Fair
he's
enough. Yeah.
he's not as talented as the other guys. He's not as focused as the other guys. And some of these other guys have put in a lot more work than he has, and it seems like he came in the last couple seasons and just kind of took over, whereas a lot of people have been there since day one working hard. And I
Mhm.
think it's just the martial artist in me that
Yeah, that's fair.
it just takes me out of the show a little bit.
Sure.
Um, what, let's see. Were you excited with what you got from part two?
Yes, I actually thought they did a really good job of delivering the tournament and how everything was kind of a thing. So kind of going back to like discussing, hey, how do we feel going into the seasons? I know a lot of people were a little critical of part one, but to me, I kind of just saw it more as just they were kind of laying the groundwork. And hey, it's only one part of a 3-part season, so let's not be too quick to judge
Right.
and stuff like that. And part one, to me, still had its highlights, but no, I thought part two was fantastic. Speaking of martial artists, I'm still new to the game myself. As I kind of told you, I just got my yellow belt on Friday, and so I'm studying Taekwondo. And one of the main influences of why I studied Taekwondo was Brandon H. Lee, who plays Quan, and
Hmm.
phenomenal, actor and martial artist. He did
Oh,
a
he's
very,
amazing.
yeah, for
He's
sure.
amazing.
He did a very good job, kind of portraying not just like a viable threat, but also kind of taking it back to the ruthlessness of the bad boys of karate in the 80s.
Mm.
Specifically, in my opinion, I thought he symbolized or embodied like the spirit of both Chosen and Mike Barnes. Which are kind of neck and neck of like who's more ruthless, like among the fandom. So and of course, hats off to Tanner Buchanan, which I hope he goes back and gets his black belt in Taekwondo. I
Mhm.
remember reading before he joined the show, the guy that played Robbie, he stopped, I think, short of black belt, but I think he did a really good job too. And he's like one of the, since like season one, he's been one of the kids that's actually done like legitimate martial arts before the show. And, makes it look very believable. So I thought it was fantastic. Of course, the ending that everybody's talking about right now was really, really I think probably one of the best cliffhangers they've had since season two because
Absolutely.
it was very just sudden and absolute. I mean, for me, I know again, just kind of going from the hearsay of like what I've heard in the fandom. I know a lot of people didn't like season two because it was more focused on teen drama, but I thought it was all right. And I think mainly because I've been watching it since the YouTube days.
Me too.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that just I think that's why to me the ending of season two was so impactful because we had to wait almost 2 years for
Right.
season three. So no, all around, I thought season six part two delivered very well. I mean, the action, choreography, the acting, the locker room scene that Miyagi-Do has before Cobra Kai always gets me in the feels. I think my only thing, which from what they've hinted at so far, it is going to be explored upon in season three. I thought we would have got a little bit more about the lore behind both Mr. Miyagi and Kim Sung Young, but I'm assuming they're going to kind of wrap that up in season six, part three. But no, I would say, I mean, easily probably 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 for me, as far as it goes. So,
I think it's part two had a lot riding on it. It had a lot to
mhm,
wrap up. The stakes were higher than ever. Um, and they had a lot of like great fan moments. One in particular I would like to highlight when Daniel is fighting the guy to trying to get out of the dog cage and fighting he uses one of our kung fu self-defense techniques. And I think it was so cool to see it used in like an action scene. Like it just like legitimizes the martial arts I practice
for
just a
sure.
little bit. Just seeing it in action. It's always cool to see. Whether like people are doing bow staffed or in Ninja Turtles when they might do some technique. It's just cool seeing these techniques used in like hardcore action scenes.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that was Dennis, played by William Christopher Ford, who was played the same character Karate Kid Part Three, and I know he teaches karate now too. I forgot what level of black belt he is, but from what I've heard in other interviews, he was actually good friends with Sean Kanan before the events of Karate Kid Part Three, and that's kind of I think they both kind of tried out for some of the same parts in the movie.
mhm.
So yeah, no, it was really glad to see him back, and I think he also kind of helped legitimize that choreography as well for that scene in particular.
And I know from firsthand because I was on the set of season 5. that like a lot of the people behind the scenes are legit martial artists.
Hmm.
Like when you're when people on the set, they're practicing all the time. They're out there sparring with each other, holding the shields up for other martial artists. They're practicing, so it's like legit martial arts behind the scenes. You know,
Right. Definitely.
which makes it a little bit more believable seeing this stuff. You know.
Hmm.
Um,
Agreed.
let's let's talk about character developments. Is there any character arcs in particular that you thought was compelling to talk about? That from this part two.
Oh, for sure. So I kind of, as you know, as when we were recording this, I took a break on some of my character analysis, but the ones for me, I loved Kenny. Kenny's arc was really good. I know. So he now initially he wasn't one of my favorite characters. Not that I hated his character, but it was just kind of like, oh man, like just see him do all the bad things and like in the season 4 going to season 5. But it was really cool that not only that he got his time to shine in season 6 part 2, he also helped legitimize Robbie's role as a leader, which also kind of ties hand to hand too. And it also ties back to his arc in season 5 where you know, Terry Silver's plan kind of backfired because he molded Kenny into to be this leader, not for Cobra Kai, but for Miyagi-Do. And because of that ref, that also backfired on him because Kenny now was able to go to the Sekai Taikai under the Miyagi-Do banner, not Cobra Kai. So it's a very nice full circle moment. Of course, Robbie as well. For me, like I became more of a fan of Robbie at the end of season 4.
Hmm.
I've said numerous times that they did Power Ranger reboot, he should definitely play Tommy.
Oh,
And,
absolutely, absolutely.
and he definitely had like some of those same vibes and going from the end of season 4 to now. And it was really cool to see Robbie get his time to shine too, especially after like always coming in second place. And I know like the fandom is very adamant about like, oh well, hey, it started with Miguel, ends with Miguel. I'm like, yeah, but it's just like, I
Hey,
mean,
I'm one of those people too. That
right.
I was even live tweeting when I first saw this. That it was kind of BS that Miguel was not the leader of the
Mhm.
team. You know what I mean? He was the protagonist from the beginning,
Right.
and I think but I understand why they're doing the whole. I understand the irony that
Mhm.
they're in the symbolism they're using by having Robbie be the leader.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and also, it just kind of goes back, and then like that's kind of where I bring up the argument. It's like, well, yeah, Cobra Kai as a show started with Miguel and Johnny, but you could argue the franchise started with Miyagi Do, which was Daniel and Miyagi. But the thing was like how they treated Miguel though in part 2, he was still a leader in his own right,
Right,
which was really really
absolutely.
good, and I think they handled that perfectly. Um, I know a lot of people are still kind of like, on him. Obviously, Kwan's arc was good. For me, I thought Axel was really, really good. Mainly because, and I covered this in my video on him. There's a lot of exhibition of Stockholm syndrome there because of, how he's like nervous. Like even though he's like a really big guy, he's afraid of his teacher. So I
Mhm.
mean, there's clearly some signs of abuse there. And the fact that he was willing to step in and save Samantha at the Indian Brawl was really cool. Which also, by the way, I highlighted this in a couple of my videos. I thought it was very interesting that they used the quiver lay motif when Axel saved Sam. So it's almost like he kind of like became a member of Johnny and Daniel's dojo in that moment, at least symbolically. Symbolically. So really great arc. We didn't get to see a lot of it, but I did like to see War Silver's arc, hopefully in part 3. And I think finally Daniel and Johnny kind of putting things behind them, hopefully for good this time. I think was really good too. So a lot of good character development all around, I think. So
I think they did. Well, not them. I didn't like the way the characters treated Kenny when he came back.
right,
I thought it was very unfair. I was like, this is not martial arts sportsmanlike. That you need. First of all, you guys need the guy for your team, and then
right.
now you're accusing him of being a traitor. I was just, I was very against that. I did not like that. I felt like it was a little bit out of character for Hawk. You know, I was like, maybe I could see Dimitri do this, but it was a little out of character for Hawk to kind of
Right. Oh, I think you
I'm
got
a
frozen. All right,
You
there we
see
go.
me?
Yes, yes.
Uh, I, 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 I I always feel like Samantha is always the cause of some of the issues and the drama between the group. And I don't know. I feel like she's like a useless character. She doesn't add anything to me personally to the group. Um, but I did like seeing Johnny and Daniel getting closer at the end, especially when he came back from being kidnapped. Like
Mhm.
Johnny was right there to be on his side, you know.
Right, for sure.
I really enjoyed that. I feel like there was a lot of growth with him, especially from where we started.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
Daniel too. Um I feel like he could have been a little bit more accepting of Johnny's teaching style. I feel like he really it felt like he was taking over, but it was good to see Johnny in the middle. See, okay, there needs to be that balance too when they were losing, you know.
Right.
And I think it was really good to highlight that.
For sure,
Uh,
definitely. I agree.
Tori and Sam, what do you think about their dynamic?
Yeah, I think they handled it pretty well because they could have easily gone like Sam, like, "Oh, you betrayed us, now we're gonna fight again," and blah 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 blah. I think it was really cool, to kind of like for Sam to be sympathetic towards Tori, like, "Hey, I understand why you did it, but I wish you would have just talked to me about it first." I also like that she was near the end of the episode, season 6, episode 9, where she's like, "Hey, I wish you could be celebrating with us." I thought that was, kind of a nice moment. I know a lot of people hate on Sam. She's not one of my favorite characters. I kind of connected her with her in season 3 because of like the similar thing trauma I've kind of gone through in my own personal life. I think she gets a lot of over hate, but I will say though, it was kind of I know they didn't really do like a lot with her this part. Maybe because they're trying to like shift the dynamic with like some of these other people, but I think they did the best they could with her character as far as that goes. Um, I will say, like, kind of pointing out to your thing about Kenny and whatnot. She was kind of right to call out like, hey, let's not judge Kenny just because all these things are kind of like lining up and stuff like that.
Right.
Tori, I personally I think since kind of like the middle of season 4, I think Peyton List has become easily one of the powerhouses of the show as far as her acting.
Absolutely, and
For
I was worried about her
sure.
coming into the show because she's coming from Disney Channel. A lot of these people are coming from Disney Channel.
Right.
Most of the cast is, and I felt like I was a little scared because I was like, usually people come from Disney Channel don't really have the great acting chops. They're not
Hmm.
really good at handling going to drama right after. But she blew it out of the park. I love having her as
Right.
part of the cast. You know,
Definitely. Yeah, no, she especially with like season the thing with me was just like it was hard for me to kind of like feel sympathetic towards a character in seasons 2 and 3, but season 4 kind of really was a very nice shift of like, how some things were. Um so I definitely like I'm definitely Peyton List I was able to meet her last month. Very sweet in person. Was very cool to take pictures with and whatnot. So, but yeah.
um, let's see. Plot twists. What plot twists and shocking moments, I should
Okay.
say. Um, one of the highlight shocking moments for me was Kenny's fight scenes. Man, he had some of the best fight scenes out of anybody in the group. Those
For sure.
uppercuts and stuff were amazing. Um,
Definitely.
the big fight scenes, the dramatic cliffhanger. What moment was most jaw dropping for you?
I think it was really cool for me. Seeing the return of Dennis was one. The return of Silver as well, because I knew he was going to pop up, but I just didn't know how they were going to do it. And I'm kind of actually glad that they didn't do this predictable thing where they had like the promo shot of Daniel fighting somebody but not showing who. I think
Hmm.
that was actually really well done. Um, of course, definitely the like you said the ending brawl was pretty awesome. I think to kind of go back with Kenny, yeah, it was really cool how he just got those points like back to back.
Right.
Really, really well done. It's also that same uppercut that he landed that final point was the same uppercut he gave to Anthony in the capture the flag challenge. I actually covered that in my video too.
And another thing, everybody got a little bit of time to shine in the tournament, and
Right.
I really like that. It wasn't just like we're just focusing on these characters. They're only going to be only the captains are going to talk. Like everybody got their little moments throughout
Right.
the season. It was really good.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I think they handled it really well, specifically the fight with Cobra Kai, because everybody was able to kind of get tagged in. And then, like, the fight with Red and Torres, which was the team right before them. That one, I know it was only kind of Robbie and Kenny somewhat for the most part, along with Miguel. But I thought that was still handled very well because it was just like the stepping stone of Robbie to finally get out of his head and assume his role as leader. Which Miguel was right about. The fact that he got not only got Kenny to join Miyagi-Do, but a lot of people remember in season 5, he walked into Cobra Kai and was willing to tell off Silver himself, and doesn't get a lot of credit for that. So
What now? Let's talk about the ending. Part 2 gave us the closure uh, we were hoping for, or did it get too many loose ends?
Um, there's a couple loose ends that we have, but I think they'll be tied up nicely in part 3, which with some of the information that Netflix put out with Cobra Kai Inside the Dojo part 2. So obviously we know the tournament's going to continue as far as that goes, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to see how they're going to handle, like, what's the discussion is going to be like, because there's a lot of factors that are involved at this point. Like, Kreese obviously is probably going to get the majority of the blame for bringing the Unjang-Do in the first place.
Right.
I think Sensei Ivanov will probably get questioned too, because he started the brawl technically when he punched out Gunther.
Mm-hmm.
I think Axel will get questioned to an extent, maybe for plot reasons, but obviously, I mean, he's not going to really be in trouble because he was defending himself.
Right.
He's not going to get
And
in trouble, but
he's not
yeah,
the one that did the stabbing. It was the other
it was
guy
all
stabbed
Quan.
himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I thought it was a good cliffhanger ending, kind of like season 2, where it's just like, oh man, this is going to be interesting, to look forward to in February. How do you feel about it?
I felt like the tension was there. It was a really good cliffhanger. I didn't expect it to like I expected a death, but I didn't
Mhm.
expect it the way we got it.
Right,
And I liked it. I think they're gonna cop out. Honestly, I think it was a little bit of cop out for him to stab himself, and I think they're gonna cop out with the explanation. But I think it's gonna lead to bigger things and a bigger conclusion
right,
later on part 3. I think it'll be redeemed. Um, it was really intense watching Kreese go after Silver.
yeah,
I was on the edge of my seat the entire time, and it was a very satisfying ending, and I'll say bravo for keeping my interest. I wasn't bored. I wasn't like wanting to be somewhere else. I was gripping the edge of my seat the entire
right,
time, and
right.
for a show to do that, especially nowadays on streaming, you don't get good finales like that.
Right. No, I agree for sure.
Um, Now let's do the rankings and final thoughts.
Okay.
For me, part 2 was a solid 9.5 out of 10. It had those intense moments, the character arcs I was invested in the entire time, and the action was top notch. It reminded me almost like the Tournament of Power for if you ever watched Dragon Ball Z, you're a big Dragon Ball
Oh,
Z fan.
definitely. Yeah.
So they had the tournament. This is like their Karate Kid Tournament of Power, and it was good to kind of see all the like main characters get their shine. So I'll say a 9.5 out of 10.
For sure. I think I can agree with that. I mean, the season wasn't perfect, but it was a lot more good than bad. Like I said, I have my little critiques here and there, but about, yeah, 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. I think that's a very fair rating. Definitely, I think it for a lot of people that didn't like part 1, part 2 kind of outshines it like miles ahead as far as, like, the content itself. And yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the series ends, with part 3. And I think it was a very good. So if knowing that how strong part 2 is, it makes you wonder how strong part 3 will be, because
Right.
now they're gonna have to top it. So yeah, no, I
Absolutely.
think I agree with the rating for sure.
Now,
So
with you saying that, does that do you think they can live up to the hype, or do you think it won't be able to live up to the hype?
I think if they can at least somewhat match it, And like what I mean by that is just kind of use an example. Like obviously, right, the Dark Knight, classic Batman film. You know, Heath Ledger obviously passed away too soon. Rest in peace. I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to at least top with Dark Knight Rises, but Dark Knight Rises was still compelling in its own way.
Right.
So if they could do something like that to where part 2 was like this, but part 3 was like this, where they're like almost equal, or but at least strong in their own sense, I think that's the best way they could go about it. And if we could get that, I think that's a perfect way for the show to end, personally. So
Well, that wraps up our Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2 review. Thank you so much for tuning in, and big thanks to Strife the Warrior for joining us today. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel for more content on Cobra Kai and other shows. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you listen to it. And we'll be back next week for more nerdy content. And until then, keep being awesome and stay nerdy. All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.